All right, our topic for today is solving simple quadratic equations. Now, a quadratic equation is just something with a square in it. So, for example, x squared equals c. This is an example of a quadratic because it has a square in it. Square, quad, okay, get the idea of quadratic equation. Quadratic equations can have different numbers of solutions to them. So, if we have something on this side that is is greater than 0, then there are usually two solutions for that. For example, so if c is greater than 0, then we have two solutions. Let's use an example. If we said, for example, x squared equals 9, there are two possible numbers that when multiplied by themselves give you 9. And those would be x equals 3 or negative 3. Those are both solutions to that quadratic equation. Or if c is equal to 0, then we have one solution. So, as an example, x squared equals 0. Well, there's only one thing that multiplied by itself gives us 0, and that's 0. X equals 0. The third possibility is that if c is less than 0, then we have no solutions. So, for example, we have x squared is equal to minus 7. There's nothing that we can think of until we get to complex numbers in several years. There's nothing that we have that can multiply by itself to give us a negative number. So this will give us no solutions. There are no solutions to these problems. So let's just do a couple of examples. If we said x squared equals 81, x squared equals 81. What times itself gives me 81? So another way we could say this is, x is equal to the square root of 81. And there are two numbers that are an answer to that. See, again, this is greater than 0. So there are two solutions, which means that x can equal 9 or minus 9. Now, we can use all sorts of numbers for this. So, for example, we can say x squared equals 23. And again, that would mean that x is equal to the square root of 23. Now, 23 is not a number that we can easily say something multiplies by itself to give us 23. But we can approximate that number if we want, put it in our calculator. If we do that, round it to 2 decimal places, then we would say this is approximately equal to 4.80. But again, remember, it's greater than 0, so there are actually two solutions, 4.80 and negative 4.80. Those would both, if we multiplied them by themselves, they would both give us 23. Another example. So let's go x squared equals negative 3. Now we have here a number that's less than 0. So how many solutions? None. No solutions. So again, x squared equals 0, which we've already talked about. If this is equal to 0, then there's one solution. X equals the square root of 0, which is equal to 0. And finally, one more example. X squared equals 7. Now, we're greater than 0, so we're going to have two solutions. We would say x squared is equal to the square root of 7. Now, like 23, there's not an even solution for that. So our best option is just to leave it at 7. We can put it in our calculator and get an estimation. But generally speaking, if we want an exact value, just 7 will be just fine. 7 or the negative of the square root of 7. And that is solving simple quadratic equations.